Let me prove that I'm 5'6", 135 pounds. I'm gonna do this in one take so that I remove all shadow of a doubt. So this is 5 feet right here. What's up people, it's TylerPath here. Today I'm gonna be talking about how I look the way I do at only 135 pounds, why I have never bulked and probably won't in the future, and what does this mean for you if you're trying to build muscle, lose body fat, or do a combination of both. Just overall get aesthetic. Now I need to preface this by saying that this is only my opinion, and I think I provide pretty good reasons on why I think the way I do, but take this as an alternative perspective as someone who's in the fitness industry but isn't competing, and they're just trying to live their best life, be healthy, and do this 100% naturally. But real quick, let me prove that I'm 5'6", 135 pounds. But honestly, I don't know what guy would lie about being 135 pounds. I'm gonna do this in one take so that I remove all shadow of a doubt. I'm actually 134 pounds as of me speaking right now. I can show you the scale. Let's see that? Okay, now let's prove my height. So as you see, 5 feet is over here. So I'm gonna step on this little divot that's not meant to be measured. Okay. So this is 5 feet right here. And let's continue on. So I'm gonna use my face as a reference point. There. So you see? 6 inches, 5'6". Maybe I'm 5'5" at night. Because of course, you naturally get shorter as the day goes. So now that we got that out of the way, how is it that I'm actually only 135 pounds? Well, in this case, 134 pounds. And really, it comes down to what people will call genetics. But what does that mean? Now, one of the biggest factors that genetics can impact that will then further impact your weight is bone structure. Now, me personally, I have a very narrow frame. I have a small bone structure. My wrists are skinny, I can wrap my pinky around them. Ankles are relatively skinny too. And in terms of overall broadness in my shoulders and my waist, it's pretty narrow. I have a pretty narrow shoulders, but luckily I also have a very narrow waist. Like I normally wear 28-inch waist jeans. So bone structure is obviously one factor, but another big factor is body fat percentage. Now this scale tells me I'm like 8.9% body fat. While I don't think that I'm that lean, I'm definitely on the leaner side. I probably hover between 10 to 12% body fat pretty much year round. And admittedly, I've pretty much been at this body fat percentage more or less all my life. The highest body fat percentage I probably got was like freshman year of college. I had like the freshman 5 basically. I got to like 140 pounds. There I was probably closer to around like 14% body fat, but now I don't want this to be mistaken as I'm unhealthily lean because I'm just naturally a lean person. Growing up, I was always around this, call it 10 to 15% body fat range. And just like how some people have a higher body fat set point where if they get down to like 10% body fat, they feel like death, that still definitely isn't the case for me because I was able to progress in my lifts and also perform at a high level while still being at this body composition. And I'm not talking about only weight training, but I also ran track and field at this body fat percentage. Adding to that, on the mental side, I'm not obsessing over food. I'm not starving myself. I don't feel like I'm binge eating or anything like that. So I think it's safe to say that I am at a healthy body fat percentage for my own personal genetics. Keyword being personal there. And ultimately, because I'm relatively lean, it makes it so that I look bigger than I actually am. If I were to measure the circumference of my arm, legs, chest, I guarantee if you just saw the raw numbers, you probably would think I am like a beginner to intermediate lifter, right? And of course, to a certain degree, that is limited by my height. I ultimately think it's a combination of these two factors that really dictate my current weight. With that in mind, over the 9 years I've been training now, I still did gain weight. I started at 115 pounds, so you can probably imagine how skinny and how genetically light I actually am. And that 20 pounds I gained, let's be honest, it probably is mostly muscle. And that perfectly brings me to the next topic, which is why I choose not to bulk. Now, this is probably the most controversial opinion or decision I've made on social media, but it really comes down to these 3 reasons. Now, first off, I want to be lean. And I know that gaining any additional body fat is a step in the wrong direction to being aesthetic, at least in my mind. The second reason is I can still make very solid progress without bulking. And the third reason is I simply don't like the lifestyle associated with someone who bulks and then has to cut and then follows that bodybuilding cycle. So starting off with that first reason, I think now because of social media, there is an expectation that I probably should stay as aesthetic as possible in order to benefit, my social media. But even before social media, My goal after I stopped running track and field, so once I got to college, was I wanted to be aesthetic, while of course also feeling good and feeling functional, feeling super active, and I'm naturally a pretty agile person, and because I ran track and field, like I take pride in being fast. To me, it just didn't really make sense to bulk and gain weight. Moving on to that second reason, when I first started in the gym, right, when I was in that newbie gains phase, I saw that I was making progress without even intentionally bulking. Now, ultimately, I didn't track during that time, so it is possible that maybe I was in a surplus on some days, but I was definitely not in a reliable surplus because I didn't really gain body fat. So while in my mind, even though my friends were bulking and doing all this stuff, like even back then I was getting shit for it, I listened to myself and I'm like, dude, I'm still making progress right now. I'm happy with the way I look. I'm still running track and field, so it's probably not gonna be beneficial on my times if I gain weight. Let me just not bulk instead. At the time, main gaining wasn't even a term yet, but I was just like, okay, let me just keep working out and prioritizing protein, but let me not focus on like bulking or anything. And then by the time I graduated high school, I looked like this. And I was like, you know what? I'm pretty happy where I'm currently at, you know? And if you still think you can't build muscle without bulking, definitely check out this video I made covering this topic. There's a really interesting study that I briefly covered that pretty much compared 3 groups. One group was main gaining, one group was at a 5% surplus, which is like barely anything, and then another group was at a 15% surplus, which is a pretty big bulk. TLDR there, the main gaining group was still able to build significant muscle. Now during college, this can be another whole story in of itself, so let me know down in the comments if you want to see a video like that, where I kind of explain my college experience and how it was related with fitness. Long story short, I tried a bunch of different things, and it always came down to, you know what, I don't like fluctuating things too much. I'd much prefer to just keep things simple, quote unquote, main gain, stay at my current body composition, and just focus on progressive overloading, getting stronger in my lifts. And then fast forward all the way till today, I think it's still working pretty well for me, so. And then the third reason, and probably most applicable to you guys that are watching, is I didn't like the lifestyle of bulking and cutting. While I never went on a traditional bulk per se, I did do my research on what it would entail. And on top of that, I actually did go on a cut in college. It was the dumbest decision I ever made. Basically, I wanted to try to get as lean as possible, and it was awful. And admittedly, I did approach it wrong. I like pretty much just slashed my calories and ate at like 1,500 calories, which is like crazy. Instead, you want to take a step down approach. Just the same with bulking, right? You want to take a step up approach. But during that time, I was tracking everything I ate. I was getting leaner, but man, mentally, it sucked, right? I was super obsessive over food. I was honestly binge eating, but through that experience, I really learned to appreciate the simplicity of what I was doing before. When I was main gaining, I was pretty much intuitively eating, so I wasn't really tracking anything super specific. I pretty much used my weight and what I saw in the mirror as a lagging indicator on, okay, am I eating too much or not? And I guess the most important part was it felt effortless for me. And I think the takeaway for you guys out there watching this, even though on paper you're probably better off bulking if you're trying to maximize muscle gains, I don't think the additional effort required is worth it for most individuals. While you do see a lot of competitive bodybuilders doing this, you have to think that that is their livelihood. That is their hobby. Like that is like what they do. Their life is about that. That is their life. But as someone who has other priorities in life, like yeah, you're trying to get in shape, you're trying to look aesthetic, but maybe you're also going to school, maybe you're also working a job that you really care about, maybe you're trying to retire your parents, you have all these other priorities and you're not a competitive bodybuilder. I think the amount of mental space that is going to occupy your brain if you do choose to bulk correctly, which means tracking everything to a T, being at a controlled surplus, isn't worth the effort when the alternative would probably feel like much less effort and you still can ultimately get to your end goal. It's just gonna take a little bit longer. And I think the most unfortunate thing about the fitness industry is me saying that, what I said earlier, I don't even know how that's gonna be received. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna get a ton of hate for saying something like that. And take it from me, as a fitness content creator, my livelihood is literally this. Fitness shouldn't be the most important thing in your life. While you can half-ass a bulk and just, eat everything in sight or just, try to gorge yourself, I think mentally that can be a slippery slope. This is why you hear people talk about body dysmorphia all the time. I think among bodybuilders, right, it's because of competition, I'm assuming, but I think among like regular people like ourselves, sure, social media can contribute to it, but when you're bulking and you're gaining additional body fat and you see the weight go up, but you see that your physique doesn't look better because you're probably getting too fat, that can really mess with your mental. When you look up online and you figure out, oh shoot, maybe it could be the fact that I'm just gaining too much body fat. I'm doing this wrong. So then you look up on the internet and then someone reputable or a coach tells you that you're probably gaining too much body fat and you're doing things wrong. Now it just feels like all that progress you did over the past 6 months of dirty bulking is just like invalidated. And that is why I ultimately tell you, if you're gonna bulk or cut, you better track what you're doing, right? If you're doing things intuitively, it's a little bit different because you can kind of listen to your body, and rest assured, because you're not looking for like weekly changes on the scale, like your weight fluctuating, you're probably gonna be near maintenance. But when you're intentionally trying to increase weight or intentionally trying to decrease weight, you basically need to be on top of your stuff. If you're in that position yourself where you dirty bulk, you're just trying to gain weight, and then you thought it was gonna be muscle, but turns out a lot of it was body fat, it's not too late. What I personally do is honestly stop bulking, try to lose like at most 1% of your body weight per week. Definitely don't slash your calories and slowly aim to get leaner, and you're gonna notice that aesthetically, you're probably gonna look better and you're actually gonna see the muscle that you actually put on, which is a beautiful thing. It's just unfortunate because I think a lot of beginners, some intermediates, and even some advanced lifters, the perpetual bulk is a real thing, and it's sad to see, right? People just bulk and then they never are able to properly cut because it's a whole mental battle, man. But at the end of the day, I think it's also good to know that you can always, over time, change your current situation. Like I've trained hundreds of clients at this point. We've got these transformations, and I learned that everyone starts at a different point, you know what I mean? So at the end of the day, it is still possible to achieve an aesthetic physique no matter how much quote unquote damage you did. And if you are interested in applying my coaching program, check in the link in the description. But with that in mind, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope this gives you guys a new perspective on fitness. Weight's not the end all be all. Bulking's not the only way. And if you are gonna do it, definitely do it correctly. So drop it down in the comments if you like these more dialogue style videos. Hit subscribe to, of course, level up your physique, and leave a like to support my page. Peace.